Well, things are quieting down after a rough weekend for many in the central and eastern U.S. But it won't last long. We've got snow in the Midwest, windstorms in the plains, and another bout of severe weather potentially later this week. I'll have all the details, plus some changes in the long range, today's trivia question, and word of the day coming right at you on a special St. Patrick's Day edition of Cold Rain's Weather World. Next. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Cold Rain's Weather World, where we talk about the current weather and the upcoming weather, and we have a little fun along the way. So if you stick around, you just might learn something and have a little fun, whether it's on purpose or by accident. We're going to make the show a fun show and have some educational content along the way. Now, if you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. It will help us grow. It'll help us tremendously. If you also like the video and leave a comment in the comment section, it can be a question about the show, a question about meteorology, or any other comment that you want to make. But most importantly, if you have a prayer request, something that I can pray over for you, I'm happy to do that. And I want to make sure that we're lifting each other up as we go through our lives. So please leave a prayer request if there's something that needs praying over. So with that, we've got quite a bit on the agenda today. We're going to start by taking a quick look back at what happened this weekend and maybe how we dodged a little bit of a bullet, even though there were numerous storm reports, including many tornadoes. There were some fatalities, unfortunately, but we're going to take a look at that, and then we're going to jump into our trivia question. And after that, we're going to take a look at our 2-minute drill where we run through the upcoming weather over the next 3 days. Then we're going to look at the upcoming snow and severe weather threat that exists later this week. And so we're going to take a look at that, plus a look at the long range, and there appear to be some changes, particularly in the temperature department. So don't miss that. And we'll end with our trivia question. We've also got a special segment called Word of the Day, which you'll want to stick around for. I'll put all of the chapters in the description section so you can skip right to the place that you want to go without having to watch the entire video if you don't have time to do it. But always circle back, because we have fun. There's some things that you won't want to miss as we go through the video. So without further ado, let's take a look here at the storm reports. This is from the Storm Prediction Center. They put this out anytime there's a severe weather event. This is for yesterday, and you can see all of these wind reports. Winds gusting 60s into the 70s, 70 miles per hour range at times. These little dots here are hail, the squares are, and then these little green triangles are where you had hail reports. Where you had some, I think, maybe some flooding reports or something like that. But we've got lots and lots of reports on the map for yesterday, the day before yesterday. So if we go back a day, we can see down here in Alabama and Mississippi, particularly, is where you had most of your tornadoes. You had a couple reported in Louisiana. And the day before that, which was Friday, you had lots and lots of wind reports up in the plains, gusts to 80 miles per hour, close to 90 in spots, numerous tornadoes up here as well. All in all, there were anywhere between 40 and 70 tornadoes. It's hard to say yet because they go out and they do assessments of the damage to confirm tornadoes or categorize the damage as straight line winds. And so there'll be continuing assessments over the next couple of days. In Arkansas, the tornado that was observed there was measured at 190 miles per hour and estimated to be an EF4. So that's the highlight of the tornadoes for the weekend, and it was a very, very strong, a violent tornado. There's a potential it could be upgraded to EF5, but they will go out and they will do their assessments and figure that out. If you look on Twitter and you do a search for Diaz, Arkansas tornado, it'll come up with a video, some damage. So you can see here lots and lots of damage. This particular house was severely damaged. You can see damage all in the background. This area, it looks like trees were stripped of bark. That's indicative of extremely strong winds, potentially F5. Houses and buildings scrubbed down or raised down to the foundation. So that was rough there. You can even see this tornado video here. I'll put it into motion, but this is an example of this. This is circulating all over social media, and you can really see that. Let me jump on a better display so you can see it better. But look at that. It's just monstrous at night. Nighttime is the worst time for tornadoes. You can see power flashes there with it. Uh, uh, and unfortunately, it did a lot of damage. So we'll get out of this and go on with the show. But I wanted you to know that. You can just get on Twitter and search that. Now, we're going to move on along to our trivia question. And so here's our trivia question for today. What weather phenomenon creates the most fatalities in the U.S. annually? Is it A, tornadoes, B, floods, C, heat waves, or D, hurricanes? I'll have the answer at the end of the show. If you know it, put it in the comment. A, tornadoes, B, floods, C, heat waves, D, hurricanes. So put the answer in the comments. If you don't know it, stick around. We'll find out shortly. Now, let's get on into our current hazards map. And I'm going to jump over to our other display here, and we can see the entire map. So what do you see that jumps out on you right away? What's been jumping out over the past, it seems like, month? Strong winds and fire hazard, critical fire conditions here in the plains. We've got more high wind warnings for New Mexico and Texas, where winds can gust 60 to 70 miles per hour. Lots of dust around there. It's been very, very dry, and lots of fire weather warnings out here. So these are red flag warnings discouraging or banning burning. Do not burn anything in these areas. Wildfires will start quickly. You've got winter weather advisories, winter storm watches up for potential snowstorm later this week in these areas. Flash flooding potentially up here in northern New England with snow melt and some heavy runoff from rain that has occurred over the past 24 hours up in the northeast. And then you've got a variety of winter weather advisories and wind advisories and winter storm warnings out west. So a lot going on today. If we take a look at our current satellite imagery and put this into motion, we can actually see what's happening here. So we've got, let me go back and actually hit play, and then we can actually see the whole thing. So we've got our storm system that brought all the severe weather. It is finally moving off the coast. It's a little bit slower up here in New England, where you still have some rain falling in the northeast. High clouds associated with our next system working on shore. This is going to translate east and set the stage for potentially snow and severe weather later this week in the Tennessee and Ohio valleys. And if we look at our radar, we'll start over here on the east. You can see that big area of rain working into Maine, New Hampshire, Boston, and so on. So you guys are picking up some generous amounts of rain this morning. This is all moving off to the east and northeast, and will be out of our hair as we get into tonight and tomorrow. Going out west, you can see some snow showers working in with a little system up here crossing the border. So toward just north of Minot, toward International Falls, you guys are picking up some light snow up there. And then out west, just a little bit of a shower and snow shower activity, snowing in the higher elevations. Now, looking at our temperatures, we're going to just shift this over a little bit so we can see here fairly warm in the center of the country, a little bit of chillier weather in the east and in the west. And if we kind of zoom in here, I'll roll this in, we can see this a little bit better. So 30s and 40s out west. Currently, this is as of about 10:30, 10:40 a.m. 50s up all the way up into Rapid City. You've got 40s and 50s, even 60s down here along the border, and then a little chillier here in the northeast. But over where this frontal boundary is, you've got southeast winds, so it's a little bit warmer near the coast, actually. So up toward the Great Lakes is where you're finding temperatures still below freezing. But that's going to change as we get through the day. Now, what's driving all of this? Let me jump to another display. So we're looking at the HRR relative humidity map for this afternoon. All of these red flag warnings that we continually see, we're seeing very low humidity and very high winds. That's the culprit. Warm temperatures, low humidity, high winds, fire danger. So when you see that, those combination of those three variables, that's what you're seeing here. And so that is going to persist over the coming days. The humidity may come up a little bit as this new storm system comes in and draws up a little bit of moisture out of the Gulf, but it's not going to be a massive precipitation maker in this area by any stretch of the imagination. So not a lot of relief on the way. If we look at our current 925 millibar winds, that's about 2,500 feet off the ground. We've got very strong winds up 950 millibars or 25 millibars. If we roll this back and kind of put this forward as we go through the afternoon, look at that. It just gets stronger and stronger. So we're talking about 55 knots. That's going to translate into around 60-ish miles per hour. And so what happens is, we talked about this before, as the sun heats the surface of the earth, warm air rises, and then you get this sort of circulation that sort of works in this general pattern. And so air from up here comes down, air from the lower and mid levels of the atmosphere circulates down, air from the surface circulates up, and you get this sort of mixing. And so as the air descends, you get warming and you get drying. And so it even exacerbates as you get through the afternoon. The humidities come down, and you get these winds that are up here at 925 millibars. They get translated down to the surface. So you get these really strong winds, and you can sort of see that reflected in those red flag warnings and high wind warnings and wind advisories. So 70 miles per hour gusts, New Mexico, Texas, 35 to 45 miles an hour, potentially over much of the Central Plains. So don't burn anything out here. And if we're looking at our weather maps over the next couple of days, so our surface map for this afternoon, again, critical fire conditions here. This stationary front is actually sort of stationary up here, quasi-stationary, and then it's a cold front down here. You've got these waves of low pressure along it. They're going to translate off and just leave some light rain behind out here in the northwestern quadrant of the country. Out in the west, you've got systems continuing to move on, and they're going to bring showers and snow showers, and that's going to translate east as we go through the week. Tomorrow, Tuesday, you can see that moving in, higher elevations picking up some snow, continued strong winds here in the southern plains, and then system starts to take shape again. It's going to get strong, but not quite as strong as this last system, and it's not going to pull up as much moisture, so not going to be a big severe weather outbreak as we get on into the week. So that's what's happening here. Now, on Wednesday, you see that translating east. So it's starting to mature a little bit. You've got a big band of heavy snow setting up from northeastern Nebraska up through Iowa, up through southern and southeastern Minnesota into north central Wisconsin. So, folks up in these areas could pick up, depending on which model you look at, anywhere from 6 to 10 inches of snow. Still TBD, and I think the track's going to determine a little bit of where this band sets up, of course, as it usually does, and how much moisture is actually going to get drawn in from the Gulf of Cold Rain. So we'll have to see all of those variables. We'll see them a little bit better as we get through the week. But again, potentially in this corridor where you've got this striped band, that's where we're looking at the most snow potentially. And then general thunderstorm and shower activity out here. But you can see there's no severe weather markers on this map. And there is a chance of severe weather, but it's not as high as it was with this last system. And then another system crashing into the west coast. Now, if we look at our temperatures, this afternoon we've got highs 60s, 70s, maybe even 80s as far north as Nebraska. They've got some, there is some potential for record temperatures out here this afternoon. So watch out for that. Going to be warm in the plains in the south, and then chilly up in the northwest and in the northeast. Of course, these are above normal for temperatures this time of year. And then tomorrow, much of the same, a little bit chillier out west as colder air works in behind this system that moves out into the plains. Warm air ahead of it, surging in 80s, 90s down here in Texas, and then 50s, 60s, and 70s across much of the east, even getting close to 50 up here in Bangor, Maine. So we're looking at warm trends continuing over the east as we get into Wednesday. Look at this, 50s and 60s all the way up to the border. Very, very warm in the northeast for this time of year, chilly behind the system. So that is your quick 2-minute drill. It wasn't so quick today because we got into some of the windy conditions over the plains and what's driving that, but that is your wind. Now, we're going to take a look at our word of the day, and we're going to have the cast of, or a portion of the cast from the Three Amigos introduce this to us.
Would you say I have a plethora of piñatas?
A what?
A plethora.
Oh, yes. You have a plethora.
Jefe, what is a plethora?
Why, guapo?
Well, you told me I have a plethora, and I just would like to know if you know what a plethora is. I would not like to think that a person would tell someone he has a plethora and find out that that person has no idea what it means to have a plethora.
Forgive me, guapo. I know that I, Jefe, do not have your superior intellect and education.
All right, so in case you haven't guessed it, our word of the day is plethora. What is a plethora? I'm sure you've heard of the word plethora before. probably 90% of you that watch this video know what plethora means. But in case there are a few of you that do not, it means simply, if you haven't gathered from the video, a large or excessive amount of something, almost often more than what is needed or even wanted. So the challenge is to use plethora today as you go about your day. So that is our word of the day. Now, let's get on into what is happening later this week. As I said before, the system that we saw on satellite crashing into the West Coast, that's going to zip across the country, and then Wednesday into Thursday provide a potential for severe weather in the parts of the upper Mississippi, mid-Mississippi Valley down into Tennessee, into potentially translating through the next day or so into the Ohio Valley. There's not a lot of moisture with the system to work with. It seems like at this point, although I've watched the models over the last couple of days, and the GFS has actually become a little more robust in its precipitation signature. That's probably accurate. These models tend to see these big systems wind up in the plains, and then they don't, way out in time, if we're talking 4, 5, 6, 7 days out, they tend not to draw up very much moisture with these systems. And then as we get closer, the moisture feed magically increases a little bit. That's just a model seeing reality a little bit better as we get in. The European is a little less aggressive with it, but if we look here at the GFS, we're looking here at Wednesday evening. So this is about 8 p.m. Wednesday evening. You've got a big low, 990. Where did it come from? It came from, let's just roll it back. You can see again, it came from Colorado-ish, and it's 987, 982, whatever that number is. It's 982, and then it weakens a little bit, but look at that. It brings snow up from Nebraska into South Dakota, into Minnesota, into Wisconsin, and the GFS is pretty heavy with that snow band, and it brings that low through Illinois. So you're going to have some dynamics again, and you're going to see this line of precipitation develop along that cold front that comes through. This is the same story that we've been seeing over and over and over the spring, and it's not likely to abate anytime soon, though some of these systems are more vigorous than the last. It is going to bring wind again, so you'll probably see wind advisories and high wind warnings out in the plains, maybe even some blizzard-like conditions as this moves on through. If we take a look at the moisture feed, so this is Thursday, again, this is, Wednesday evening, and you can see not a lot of moisture, not a lot of these green colors are coming in, so very dry behind, so continued dryness and fire conditions out here in the plains, but look out ahead. So if we roll this forward, just kind of advance it a little bit, not a lot of good, warm, rich, warm sector here. And so look at that. It just sort of gets pinched off. You don't get a lot of return flow and a lot of strong winds out of the south. And so you're really not seeing much moisture content, which is why the precipitation amounts are so low, which is why the severe threat is so low as well. But if we take a look at our upper level winds, this is way up high, close to 20,000 feet in the atmosphere, 18,000 feet. You've got, again, another strong 500 millibar jet coming in here. It's not quite as strong as the last one, but it's still present. It moves over Tennessee. The core of this is right in this area, Arkansas up to Indiana, but it's still very strong. This is a 95 knot jet in through here. And so we're looking at rolling that on forward, see how it kind of translates. And you get this other little secondary max down here. Will that exacerbate any precipitation into the Carolinas? Not sure yet. We'll see. But the 850 millibar jet, again, that's fairly strong too. So that works in overnight, Thursday, Wednesday night into Thursday afternoon, and you can see that translate up into the Northeast. So you've got wind shear again. That's why there's a marginal risk, because you've got some level of moisture, a low level 850 millibar jet, about 5,000 feet off the ground, and then as you go up, the winds get stronger. So you've got that vertical wind shear. So any storms that do develop could be well ventilated, and they could take advantage of some of that low-level wind, translate it down to the ground. It doesn't look like a strong tornado threat or anything like that, but it's something to keep an eye on as we get into the week. And then looking at the snow side or the cold side of the storm, look at this. So the GFS is showing as much as 10 to 14 inches all the way back from Nebraska through Minnesota up through Wisconsin into the Great Lakes. And so that's what the GFS is showing. Now, if we look at the European, it's a little bit stingier with its snow amount. So you're seeing 6, 8, 9 inches in spots. That's what the little purples, when you get into the purples, this is 6, 8, 9 inches. 6 inches is the purple kind of boundary, and then goes up from there with the pinks. And so that's what we're seeing in terms of our mid to late week threat. All of that translates off into, going back and taking a look here. All of that translates off into the northeast, and you get a little broken line. Maybe, and see here, remember that jet that I showed you? The GFS wants to sort of create a secondary little system here. And so as we get on into Thursday night into Friday, we've got a little bit of a heavier rain band that's coming through the Tidewater, Virginia, up into the northern mid-Atlantic, and then it develops a low pressure here into New England, and you get snow on the backside and then rain along the coast. It kind of flips over to snow as the system pulls out. So that's the GFS. The European is a little less. If we want to take a look at that real quick, we can do that. If we roll this back, right on the fly, we're changing our plan right on the fly. Look at this little skinny line that comes through. So European still brings some snow out here to the Midwest, Great Lakes, but look, it brings a little skinny line through, and not much else happens. You see that now finally the low starts to develop way up here in New England, so you get a little backside snow as the cold air surges in from the north, and then that pulls on off Maine. You pick up a few inches of snow. So that's what's going on there for your midweek system. Still a little model discrepancy. We'll refine that as we go forward. Now, if we get back in here and to take a look at, so there's our snow, so that's the European snow map. Now, sorry, I'm jumping all over the place here with our displays, but let's go back here and take a look at what happens after. So as we get past the midweek system, looking at our jet stream here, so this is early this week, this is this afternoon. So look at our jet. We're going to put this jet into motion and just move it along over the next couple of weeks, and look what happens. So we've got our midweek system that's shaping up Thursday into Friday, and then another little wrinkle comes in a Saturday behind, so I don't expect a lot of precipitation there. And then we get a little ridge working in. You still see this nice split. So you've got a subtropical jet that's way down here. It's not really doing much in terms of being an impactful weather maker, but our northern branch is coming along, and it's delivering these little storm systems. So here's another dip that's going to come in after this ridge works in. Get a trough in the east. You're probably looking at some level of storm system here on next Monday or Tuesday, and that works on in, and then you get another ridge, trough, couplet, another little system works in. So you're seeing a very active jet pattern. Would you say we have a plethora of activity? We've been looking at this for the last week or so, and that'll continue on in perpetuity. Not sure when it'll change, but no signs of it backing down right now, and so we'll have to continue to watch it. If we look at our temperature profile, well, we'll get to the temperature profile in a second. Here's our total European ensemble precipitation. The heaviest amounts are here in the West Coast. Several inches of rain could fall out here, particularly in the higher elevations where a lot of snow could fall. Those systems track along. They get a little stronger as they get into the Midwest and the Tennessee and Ohio Valley up into the Great Lakes. They sort of strengthen and draw some moisture up, and so you get a larger footprint out here in the east. And then these secondary waves tend to develop along the coast and along the front, and they work up and deliver a little bit more of a robust precipitation surge into the northeast. And then out in the desert southwest, unfortunately, it continues to look dry out here where you guys need the rain, particularly in Texas and Oklahoma. So we'll see if that changes as we get into April. Now, some things have changed a little bit over the last couple of days, and that is that we've been looking at this ensemble mean 5-day rolling average temperature profile over the coming 2-week period. We've been looking at that over the last week or so. And so look what happens. Now, it's been a very orange map, particularly in the east. But if we roll this out, we've got a little chillier than normal out here in the west. These are, 5 to 6 degrees below normal. And over here where these oranges are, this looks like 4 to 6 degrees above normal. And average highs tend to run 20s and 30s along the northern tier, 40s and 50s in here in the central portion of the country, and then 60s and 70s down here along the southern tier. Those are daily averages, and those increase through the month of March. So if we put this forward, now look what happens. We're looking at the 5-day average valid, let's see when this is. This is March the 19th through March the 24th. Okay, so this is getting us into next it covers the weekend into next week. And every time I advance this, it's, moving it forward. That 5-day average block moves forward a day. So now it's the 20th to the 25th. So you see what's going on. But look what happens. We're starting to get a cool down, particularly in the east. And the west is warming up a little bit. And we saw that with the jet stream with that ridge working in. So look at this. Cooler in the east, cooler in the east, cooler in the east. So we're starting to get to see as we get on into March the 24th through March the 29th, so the end of March, early April, it looks like we're going to be warming up out west a little bit, cooling down in the east a little bit. Now, these aren't extremely cold anomalies, so we're talking a few degrees below normal, but hey, it's better than it depends on your perspective, of course. I like a little bit cooler weather than hot weather, and so, if we're looking at average highs being in the 60s and it's ends up being in the 50s, I mean, that's really neither here nor there. It's not all that much, but still, it's a different pattern than we've seen. It's going to get hot, and it's going to get hot this summer soon enough, so I'll take all the cool I can get personally. Now, you might feel different, but that's just how it goes. And then here is our, let's go to a different display. Here is our CPC Climate Prediction Center map. They're looking at above normal. Remember how this was over here a couple of days ago? Bam, it was really, 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 really warm in the east, but now it's probabilities are neutral to slightly below and then much above in the west. And so that's a change. We're going to watch that and see if that continues to persist over the next few days. And then as we get into the 8 to 14 day precipitation outlook, above normal across the northern tier and the east coast, below normal out here where you really need the rain, unfortunately. So that, my friends, is the weather show for today that hopefully helps you understand what's happening the next couple of days over the next couple of weeks. We'll keep, obviously, just as just the caveat, things change in the 2-week period all the time, so we'll monitor it every day. And with that, brings us to the answer to today's trivia question. So remember what our question was? It was, what weather phenomenon creates the most fatalities in the U.S. annually? Tornadoes, floods, heat waves, or hurricanes? And the answer may surprise you. The answer is heat waves. Approximately 1,220 people die each year in heat waves. People don't have air conditioning. People are elderly and they get outside and they get overworked, and easy to get heat stroke especially as you get older in age. But anybody that is outside during the summer months needs to stay well hydrated. And when it's very, very hot, you need to take frequent breaks and stay inside as much as you can. So that is the #1 killer of people in the U.S. So with that, that is our show for today. I hope you've had a good time. We will be back tomorrow with another episode. In the meantime, this is Cold Rain reminding you that if other stations run 24/7, we got you covered 48/14. Take care, everybody. Hope you have a great day.